So Sag, 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 Sag energy. Sag is ruled by Jupiter, planet of expansion, optimism, vision. Speaking of vision, Sag is the archer, meaning Sag has an ability to be precise in its direction, in its movement, and in its vision. When I say vision, I mean Sag has the ability to see far beyond the present. I mean, this is why Sag is so optimistic. Because Sag can be going through something that's really intense, painful, struggle. We all go through struggle. But the difference in how Sag approaches struggle is because they have vision, they can already see the end of the struggle. They can see what's behind the struggle. So they can see, I say the light at the end of the tunnel. Sag knows where the light is coming from. So not only can Sag see the light, they know the source of the light. So this is why Sag rules the ninth house, right? Ninth house and Jupiter as well. It all rules. It rules religious institutions and our connection to source. So Sag has the ability to visually capture source and its optimism. That optimism is the light at the end of that tunnel. That's Sag. So Sag energy is fire. It's a fire sign, right? So the fire deals with expression. It deals with expression. Sag, ninth house, Jupiter rules philosophy. So Sag is the philosopher. And the reason why Sag is such a philosophical sign is because it has vision. It has vision. So Jupiter rules Sag and also Pisces. So the way I'm going to explain the difference and the way Jupiter rules these two different signs, right? So the way Jupiter rules Pisces, it gives Pisces that same philosophical bent, but Pisces is the water. So Pisces is like a sound wave. It's a wave, the ocean. Sag is an arrow. Again, Sag is the archer. So Sag is a straight arrow, right? And Pisces is a wave, right? So again, again, Sag is a fire sign, right? So again, fire deals with expression. It deals with our vision. It deals with how we express ourselves, how we shine our light, right? Our inner light. And Sag does this in such a precise way. So the emotions, because Jupiter rules Pisces and Sag, Pisces being a water sign, Sag being a fire sign, how can Jupiter rule a fire and water sign at the same time? It's kind of puzzling because water and fire don't mix well typically, right? So Jupiter, I forgot my point. Fucking getting too excited. What I was going to say, I was breaking down the difference. Oh, how can Jupiter rule both a fire and water sign? Jupiter rules Pisces in its emotional ideologies, right? Jupiter rules Sag in its philosophical ideologies and its connection to source, because both Sag and Pisces have a divine connection. Even if they could be atheists, right? You can have a Sag that's an atheist, but they will approach their atheism in like a very methodical and religious kind of way, and very esoteric as well. And Pisces, Pisces natural born spiritual being. That just the way they approach their lives. And by the way, Sag approaches their life in a very spiritual context, but they're fire. So they're not emotional. Sag is not an emotional sign. It's not. It's fire. It deals with expression. If anything, its emotions is connected to how it visualizes its future. So, and like Aquarius has this ability to project a thought into the future, which they share that future-oriented nature together, both Aquarius and Sag and Pisces. But while Aquarius can project the thought, Sag can visualize the future. So, and Pisces has an ability to feel what the future holds. They can intuitively understand it through their emotions. So that's how that future orientation is broken down between these three signs. But Sag is interesting as fuck, man. Sag is very optimistic. Sag is optimistic as fuck, right? Even though they will cut your ass if they choose to set their vision upon you. Nobody wants it really with a Sag when it comes to like debating anything, or Sag, Virgo, or Gemini. You don't want to debate these signs. They will cut you because they deal with Mercury. Mercury, I think it's debilitated or it falls in Sag. Talking so much, the goddamn thing went out. Mercury doesn't do well in Sag because Sag is abstract thought, and obviously Mercury, it's exalted in Virgo, and it rules Virgo, and Mercury obviously rules Gemini. Mercury is the planet of the communication and the thought process. And I'm not talking about Mercury. The only reason why I bring that up is to make the point that you don't want to get into a debate with any of these signs because they deal with thought process and the literal words that we use. What else can I say about Sag? Being fire, being philosophical, being very religious minded, even if they're not religious. It's a very spiritual sign. How does the Sag project their future visual fucking capabilities in a business sense? Or how do they project this out in like practical reality? Sagittarius don't want to be labeled. So they're the sign of the archer, but they're also the sign of the a minotaur or a centaur, half man, half horse. That's their spirit animal, essentially. In astrology is half man, half horse, Sagittarius. So with that, they like to roam, they like to explore. So they rule exploration. Sag is very curious. Again, their opposite sign is Gemini, which is the sign of curiosity. Gemini is curious about every single thing, but the difference is Sag is curious just like Gemini. They're sister brother signs, but Sag is curious about specific things, as opposed to Gemini just curious about everything. Sag won't be curious just about everything, right? Things have to make sense because again, they're very methodical. They're very methodical sign. Everything they do, they see it first and then they plan it based on the vision they had, right? So with that being said, they don't really like to be labeled. They don't like to be boxed in because that then it makes them feel like you're trying to control the narrative, the vision that they have for themselves and for their future. If you try to box that in, it's like you're trying to tell them that you know their vision better than they do. And no one knows a Sag vision better than a fucking Sag. All right. Because Sag has the vision. They have the sight. They understand the future. So it's safe to assume when you're dealing with a Sag, when they tell you something, especially if they're like giving you advice. Sag don't like to really give advice because they adhere to their own vision. They don't adhere to other people's visions, or they rarely do they project that vision on you. Again, it's fire. Fire deals with expression, self-expression, right? Fire is by default self-centered. Self-centered is not a bad thing. It's essentially being self-centered. You have a strong sense of self. You're centered in who you are. You're centered in self-centeredness, right? Fire deals with this. All the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sag, they all have a high level of self-awareness, for better or worse. But in the context of a Sag giving you advice, you should really take heed when a Sag tells you something, because essentially what they're doing is they're telling you the outcome of your actions. They're not gonna overly relate to what it is you're giving them in that moment. right? They're not gonna necessarily empathize with the current details that they're seeing in you. They're more so gonna receive the present, but then they're gonna project into the present what's to come. This is why Sag deals with religion. It deals with higher thinking. It deals with, by the way, Sagittarius, 9th house, Jupiter, they rule colleges and universities and higher education. So higher perspective, seeing the entire forest, not just the tree, but the entire thing. So take heed when they tell you something, because essentially they're telling you the outcome, how this thing, every action, every detail you give them, they're going to give you the overall like answer for it in a way. They'll never admit this though. They're optimistic, right? So they don't really like hold on and cling to anything really. Again, they like freedom. They like to roam. They like to explore. But while they're exploring, it's almost like they're hacking reality with this vision. You think of Sag, just automatically equate Sag to vision. They're visionary people. They can see the future. They can see the future because they just understand outcomes. They understand outcomes. It's not even so much like predicting. It's not even that. They're so abstract minded. Their brain is already like hardwired to understand like X, Y, Z, particularly the Z. They understand X, Y already. Again, their brother's sister sign is Gemini. Gemini understands the X, Y, right? Gemini understands like, if I do this, I'm also going to do this, right? And they just do that and do this and then do that and then do that over there and then do. Gemini don't really give a fuck about the Z. They don't really give a damn about the outcome. They just want to explore a bunch of different shit. That's why Gemini is the fun energy. But with Sag being their sister brother sign, Sag, not only do they understand X and Y, they understand the Z. They understand the outcome because they are the visionary.